Agile, yeah! Hello and welcome to my new YouTube channel, the Agile Product Owner. My name is Brian, and I am going to be going through this journey with you to talk about Agile and specifically the product owner role and share some of my learnings from my experience in the position, and who knows, we might get into some real interesting stuff here. We might have some developers on to talk about the process of working with a product owner and what the role brings. We might will definitely be answering questions off of Reddit and just questions that I see in the Agile community, because I think there are a lot of questions out there and there aren't a lot of answers, particularly a lot of kind of down to earth answers from real product owners in an easily digestible format. And that's the gap that I'm hoping to fill with this channel. Let's get a couple things kind of out of the way right up front. I am not a professional content creator. I've dabbled in content creation with another YouTube channel that's mostly focused on board game culture and collecting. But I am not a polished professional video editor. I am a professional product owner. And so this series, this channel isn't going to have all the bells and whistles that you might expect from a channel like that. You know, there are a lot of really slick looking videos on Agile best practices and product ownership on YouTube. And, you know, you should feel free to check those out. I'm again going to be trying to come from a little more grounded position, from somebody who is actually in the trenches doing the work and who has, I think, a lot of stories to share and a lot of context to give, to put around these best practices, the Agile manifesto, the principles, and the Scrum guide, and how those things manifest in a real workplace. So that's what you're going to be getting from this channel. I hope that sounds interesting to you. If it doesn't, sorry to see you go. I thought we'd start off today actually talking about the product owner role at a very high level. And I drew up this graphic to kind of guide that discussion. So in terms of my history with the role, I've been an Agile product owner at a large R1 research university for the last 6 years, primarily working with a small Scrum team of software developers to create technology solutions for academic users, so for instructors and students. So, and I have a real passion for the role and for Agile. It's not something that I kind of sought out. I have kind of an interesting origin story into how I got into this. Basically, I was working as a senior application administrator, and my boss came to me and a friend one day and said, "Hey, I've got 2 tasks that I need taken care of in the next couple weeks here. I need somebody to plan, let's call her Janice. I need somebody to plan Janice's birthday party, and I need somebody to take over managing custom development. And my buddy, quick as a bunny, jumped out and said, "Oh, I'll take the birthday party." Because the software development probably sounded like a lot of work. And it was a lot of work, and it is a lot of work. But me being left with the kind of software development bag, I jumped right into it. And one of the first things that I did was meet formally with the development team and just ask them, what do you want to get out of this? What's the direction you want to take in terms of managing our development workflow? And universally, the thing that they brought up was, we want to try out Agile. We want to try Scrum. And I had no idea what that meant. I had basically never heard of Scrum. And I said, okay, if that's what you want, let's try it out, And so I started kind of self-training on Scrum best practices and particularly on how I might fit into that process, and came across this role of the product owner, a role that's very kind of central to the process. As a product owner, you are part of the Scrum team, and I really liked that aspect of it. I didn't want to be just a traditional kind of project manager. Not because there's anything wrong with project management, and I've done it in the past, but more because it doesn't have the same kind of skin in the game that product ownership does, if that makes sense. As a project manager, you ultimately, maybe you don't have a lot of influence or a lot of accountability, and the product owner role has loads of both. And that just jives with me philosophically. I like being responsible for things. I like being accountable, and I like collaborating. And you can see here in our little image that the product owner role is really all about that collaboration, because it's the stakeholder representative on the Scrum team of developers. So you've got your stakeholders over here, your customers essentially, who come to you and say, hey, we have this problem. Using an example from my past, we want to create, we have these students who are completing courses without the instructor realizing it. And so as a result, the grades are getting submitted by the instructor late. Product owner, I meet with the stakeholder, I hear their, get them to tell me the problem, really try to steer them away from solutionizing. I just want to hear, what's the problem? The problem is students are completing these self-paced courses without the instructor being aware of it, and grades are being submitted late. I take that, I drill into it, talk about the scope of the problem, the impact, talk about all the kind of business requirements gathering, writing user stories to take this stakeholder request and fashion it into a request that I can take, a story that I can take to the developers and say, this is what our stakeholder needs. This is why they need it. This is who it's going to impact. You figure out the how. This is a really crucial element of product ownership that can't be underestimated, is that you, as the product owner, you don't ever, in my opinion, you don't ever want to bring the how to a discussion, because I am not in a position to make that decision. I don't have the necessary skill set. I don't have the necessary information. I am not a software developer. I'm not a coder. I'm not, my developers love throwing terms around that I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. Oh, we need to update from Rel 7 to Rel 8, and we need to containerize and move into OpenShift, and I'm not in a position to comment on those things from a technical approach. And I don't think in general that is a weakness of product ownership. I think it's actually a strength of it, because the whole point, one of the key elements of Agile is that you want your development team to be self-organizing, meaning you want them to be able to make decisions. You want them to be able to decide who is best suited to work on this particular task. What is the best approach? They'll always ask you for your input. You always want to be informed as to what's going on, but you don't want to dictate to them. And so having a product owner who has an extensive technical background, like a previous developer, could actually be a problem, because that person is naturally going to solutionize because of their expertise in the developer domain. Whereas I've never seen that as my role as a product owner, and I try to stay away from it as much as possible. And the whole role really is just about collaborating between and with those stakeholders and developers to ensure that the product that you deliver is valuable. This is another key element of product ownership, is that the product owner is 100% responsible for the value delivered in the product, or the increment, or the PI, or whatever terminology you want to use. And the way that the product owner ensures that value is by prioritizing and by helping the team set goals and then meet those goals, achieve those goals. So usually this will manifest in your day-to-day work as a product owner in managing the product backlog. So, which is basically a list ordered by priority of the various tasks that your development team has in its kind of backlog. So you might have 60 items in your product backlog, and you have to, by collaborating, the role is incredibly collaborative. You have to bear this in mind. By collaborating with the developers and the stakeholders, you order that list based off of what is most important and ensure that those are the things that get done first. And the developers will take the product backlog and pull items from it into the sprint backlog, which is what the sprint is based off of. I'm using a lot of terminology here. I don't know the level of sophistication that my audience is necessarily going to have in the event that I ever have an audience. But a sprint is basically a time-boxed section of work. So 2 weeks, you say my sprint starts on Wednesday, and it ends 2 Wednesdays from now. And whatever the development team gets done in that time frame is the output of the sprint, the increment. And so it's just a really cool role. It's all about collaboration, cross-functional leadership, tactical decision making, strategic decision making, road mapping, and establishing kind of the vision and the mission for the Scrum team. Again, all of this is done in collaboration with the other members of the Scrum team, which is usually a group of developers or maybe a QA person, maybe a business analyst if you're really lucky and overstaffed. We never were. We were skeletally staffed, so it's just a couple of developers, part-time QA and myself as the product owner. And so I basically created this channel to talk about product ownership, and that's kind of a brief explanation of broad overview of what I think the role is all about, and we're going to get into a lot more detail on that in the following videos. I think I'm going to start with a series where I just go through the 2020 Scrum Guide and talk about how it applies to a real product owner's work in the kind of day-to-day, because I think that might be valuable. That might give some valuable context into why these things are important, because there is a very large difference between doing agile and being agile. And in my opinion, one is the right way and one is the wrong way. You don't want to be ticking the boxes of agile. You don't want to say, okay, I'm agile because, yes, I created a Scrum team and there's a guy on it who's responsible, who I can yell at if things don't get done. Again, product owner, you're responsible. And who talks to the stakeholders. So, yay, agile. There's value in that, in just like the basic structure of it, because you're going to get a lot of the benefits of a software agility just by kind of following the numbers. You're going to, if you're even coming close to trying to implement something like Scrum, you're going to work in those kind of shortened time boxes called sprints. You're going to meet regularly with the developers to talk about progress. You're going to review the work that you've done and kind of retrospect on it. But the real value, the real power of agile comes when you synthesize the philosophy behind it into your work. So you start thinking like an agilist and you start applying that to your work. That's when you get to that kind of next level where, again, it's not just theoretical. It's, I understand this theory. Like, just understanding that it's a philosophy and a mindset more than anything else is hugely valuable. Because if you understand that mindset, if you understand, okay, why is self-organizing important? They tell me I have to be self-organizing, but why? Why is it important? Well, it's important because the developers are the best resource to be answering questions about development. They are the subject matter experts. It's important because self-organizing teams tend to have higher morale because they're invested and they feel empowered. It's about empowerment. And getting to that level is where I would really love to take this channel and help as many people as possible get to that level where they're thinking beyond the structure and the words on the page and really thinking about how it's implemented in your day-to-day and how it can be used to continuously improve processes and your outputs. So that's the goal for the channel. Sorry, this is a little rambly. It's my first video. Bear with me. Again, this is very much a kind of Neophytes YouTube page. I don't have a fancy background. I can't figure out how to make a banner that looks halfway decent for my channel. I got Hobbs hanging out in the background there. But I'm hoping that this will be a little bit more approachable and a little more kind of, again, a little more down to earth and hopefully a little more valuable than a lot of what's out there. So hope you enjoyed this. I will talk to you later and have a good one.